Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Thanks so much for coming. The webinar we're running is, as you know, all around attracting diverse candidates, and we're expecting it to last around an hour. Of course, we're going to send through a recording afterwards, and if you've got any questions as we go, just add them in the Q&A box, which is in the toolbar of Zoom, and we're going to try and answer them as we go. If we don't answer them as we go, we'll get to them at the end, but rest assured your questions will be answered. We're also going to send around a feedback form at the end of the webinar. Please do take the time to fill it out. It sort of guides us on what content you're interested in hearing more about in the future, as well as around helping us to improve different elements of the webinar, and hopefully making these as exciting and interesting as possible. So today we're lucky enough to be joined by two expert speakers, both covering their own specialist areas of diversity and drawing from a wealth of experience, both very passionate about both diversity and inclusion. So thanks for joining us today. We've got Javad Abdul Razul, who is the VP of Talent at PropTech firm Habito, and Siobhan Randall, the Diversity and Inclusion Lead at the apprenticeship specialist firm WhiteHat. Really looking forward to learning from both of you guys today about how you think about D&I and how you approach it at your organizations. And for those of you who have joined us, again, thanks so much for coming. What you should expect is a lot of practical changes that we're going to run through that you can implement in your own organizations. It's all around what you can actually do and how you can affect a change. So I'm going to get us started by introducing Instant Impact and running through why we're a good company to be talking about this topic, and also how we attract diverse talent for our clients. So for those of you who don't know us yet, Instant Impact are in-house recruitment specialists, which means that we work with our clients to build the internal recruitment function that they need to reliably bring the right talent into the organization, as well as to successfully execute recruitment strategies that range from remote recruitment and how to deal with this very strange talent world that we find ourselves in post-COVID, and then also how to improve really important things like diversity within their organization. Of course, today we're zooming in on how to attract more diverse candidates, but it's really important to remember that no element of diversity strategy can exist successfully in a vacuum. I'm sure these are topics that both Siobhan and Javad will come on to later, but it's really critical that you get, first of all, everyone in the company bought into this concept of improving diversity, and that's from the most junior recruiter all the way up to your CEO. And yes, that does mean maybe a couple of awkward conversations as you influence internal stakeholders, but there's no point in going to all the effort, implementing all the ideas that you're going to learn about today about how to find quality candidates from varied backgrounds if your hiring managers aren't bought into the idea that people from those backgrounds would add value to their teams, because they're just not going to hire them at the end of the day. Equally, you have to make sure that once you've attracted diverse candidates, that your assessment process is fair, and that it will offer them equal opportunities to the traditional candidates that you've hired within your organization. So just have a think about what parts of assessment you have where, because some of the more classic assessment methods, for example, CVs, can actually be really poor predictors of in-role performance, but they also introduce significant bias against some of those high caliber candidates from traditionally overlooked backgrounds. So make sure that you're building the foundations of your assessment process and doing it in a way that really levels the playing field. A truly diverse diversity-centric recruitment process, God, that's a tongue twister, needs all three elements working in harmony. So that's the influencing internally, attracting diverse candidates, and then also making sure that they're being assessed in a fair way. And if you're interested in finding out any more about any of those different elements, we've got past webinars that we've run on those topics recorded on our Diversity Hub, which I believe Claire will share a link to in the chat now. And then we've also got video modules as well on each individual topic. So I hope you enjoy that. And again, please do provide any feedback that you have. So on to attracting talent. There are 6 steps in a business that you can take that I'd really like to explore today. As a first step, you have to remove the barriers to diverse candidates applying, and we're going to look at the substance and content of job descriptions. This is a study here that you might have heard of before, but I really do think it bears repeating because it's such a clear example of one of the challenges that you face. It's a study that came out of Hewlett-Packard, and they found that men tend to be comfortable applying for a job when they meet only 60% of requirements, but women will apply generally only if they meet 100% of them. And that means that on something as simple as a job spec, every requirement that you add is going to significantly reduce the chances of female applicants. And it's as simple as that. And it really goes to show how the content that your business uses can be so influential on the diversity of candidates that end up applying. And it's quite scary when you think about it, because most companies provide very little support to hiring managers, who often whip together a job description between meetings. So not very much thought has often goes in there. So I'd encourage a change that you could make is to really challenge yourself and your hiring managers when adding must-haves into a job description. And it's our job as business leaders, HR professionals, in-house recruiters, to really make sure that requirements only make it onto a job ad when they're exactly that, they're requirements. And look, as with all of these changes, it might be a bit of a big leap for your hiring managers to make. So what we often do with our clients is to put in a preferred experience or a beneficial skill set section as a first sort of intermediary step. Now, once you're happy with the requirements of a job description, it's time to focus on the language. There's really strong evidence that certain words can influence the likelihood of people from different genders and different groups applying. So you need to make sure that your language isn't unintentionally putting certain candidates off. There are words like challenge, champion, and self-reliant that are considered to be masculine coded, and that means they're more attractive to male candidates. Again, I think at the end of this webinar, we're going to share a link to a tool that we use to double check our job descriptions, as well as within there, you'll be able to find the original research. So if you're interested in finding out more about gender coding, it's all in there. So once you've put together your job description, a way to attract your candidates, you need to decide and execute your advertising strategy. And for that, we'd always recommend starting with a job board strategy. If your current selection of job boards aren't bringing you a diverse pool of high quality hires, it's just time to reassess which job boards you use. And as a rule at Instant Impact, we try and use as broad a range of job boards as we can within budget constraints. And that means that the jobs can be seen obviously by a wider range of candidates, but also brings an additional advantage that the more generalist job boards like LinkedIn or Indeed, for example, can help you attract candidates from other industries, and those other industries might be more diverse in terms of the people that work within them. So we'd really recommend, as well as those generous job boards, to look at some diversity-centric ones as well. There's a great company called Visida, for example, where you can attract 30% more diverse candidates when compared to Indeed. And they also provide really useful tips on how to improve. But even though they're great results from that, only 21.6% of a survey that we run showed that businesses actually only 21% of businesses that we surveyed were actually using those job boards to drive applications. So it's also a great way to get out there ahead of your competition and come across talent that they're not. My final tip on job boards is to use data and to track metrics to follow the results. So analyze the success of your applicants, of course, but also look at the diversity ratios that you're getting from different job boards so you can see where it's working. And then, as with anything, experiment, adapt, try something new. If it's not working, a great place to start is to change the job title. It's so influential on who clicks in to find out more and to ultimately apply for the position. So that's the quick whistle-stop tour of job boards, but it's by far not the only channel that you can go through. So finding the right partners can be really critical, but only 1 in 10 companies actually do this. And there are loads of organizations that you can work with that already support minority and disadvantaged groups to get into employment. And this can be a great way to get your company out in front of a more diverse talent pool. loads of companies out there, and you don't need to look that hard. Of course, there are universities, schools, apprenticeship training providers, and I'm sure Siobhan will come onto that in more detail later. There are professional groups like Women in Finance or Coding Black Females, charities like the Amos Bursary or Brixton Finishing School, loads of companies out there, and it's just really important to reach out, build a relationship, and think about what you're providing them as well as the talent that you're getting for your organization as well. If you're lucky enough to have a team of in-house recruiters already, they should be headhunting diverse candidates for you. So not only will this open up a pool of talent that isn't actively job seeking, and a nice side note, it will reduce your reliance on recruitment agencies, but if it's done right, it can have a really positive influence on diversity. So encourage your team to try and present a diverse panel of candidates for each vacancy. You can consider actually requiring them to do that by implementing something called the Rooney Rule, where you can actually insist on candidates from certain backgrounds at certain stages of interview. That's an example of what we call positive action. And we've got a video on the topic on our Diversity Hub if you're interested in finding out any more. That said, normally we stop at ensuring that the headhunting we do is proactively diverse rather than exclusively from groups that are underrepresented talent pools. So reaching out to a diverse group of candidates means that we're much more in control of the change rather than waiting for the good results from marketing and job boards to take effect. Now, I'm not going to go into early career programs because I know Siobhan is going to shortly, but they're such an important part of so many of our clients' diversity strategy that it felt weird to not at least just say early careers program are really important. So more on that one later. And then the final element that I wanted to run through from what we do for our clients is looking at employer brand and our advice around here. So this is the element that's going to tie your diversity attraction strategy together, and it's the window that you have to provide potential employees into the business, what you do, what you believe in, and it can be so influential in determining which candidates apply and which ones don't feel welcome. Now, we've already covered the content element of this, but there is a lot more to consider. It's not just a case of making sure that you've got the right stock images on your website to make it look like your company is diverse. If you try and fake it, your existing employees are going to catch you out, and that's not going to go well. But the best thing to do is to make sure that your employer brand is reflective of what you're doing as an organization as a whole. And the best way to do that is to reflect and celebrate all of the work that you're doing to become an inclusive organization online. And that creates a really positive, virtuous cycle. So more candidates will be able to find you through your social media and your other activity. Those that do will be more likely to apply because they like what they see. When they join, they'll feel more welcome, which will make your company a more diverse and inclusive place to work. The more inclusive your workplace is, the more likely it will be that your employees will refer their contacts to apply, which in turn will make it more easy to hire and retain more diverse employees. And the wheel cycles on, as you can see on the picture behind. But what I'd say is just be really proud of the work that you're doing, and whether they're the first small steps you're taking in building a diversity and inclusion strategy, or whether it's the 100th step you've taken as part of a long-term strategy, share that online, and we found that people respond really well to that. So look, that's it from me. They're the 6 areas of focus that we'd advise for attracting diverse talent, and I'll stop and I will introduce now our first speaker, who's Siobhan Randall from WhiteHat, and bear with whilst we transfer, hopefully seamlessly, between slide decks. Great, thanks for joining us today, Siobhan.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm the Inclusion and Diversity lead at WhiteHat. And that kind of means that I really think about our apprenticeship community We have over 1,000 apprentices at over 200 companies across London and increasingly regionally too. So really thinking about how we create an inclusive place for them to learn, and an apprenticeship experience that's going to be really different from the traditional education offer that we're used to in this country. And then also thinking about ourselves as a startup internally and how we kind of really walk the walk and apply what we're trying to create in the world in our own startup. So really thinking about access to our roles. Today I'm going to focus on the apprenticeship element. Apprenticeships aren't themselves a diversity initiative, and that's really important to remember. But what they are is a fantastic entry route for talent, and they are a fantastic tool for diversifying the entry talent you would usually consider. And on a really simplistic level, that's because if you're only focusing on graduates, then you're already excluding about 50% of the population from your roles who could be absolutely fantastic. There's also the added benefit of apprenticeships being applied education. So when you think about things like tech, actually a software engineering apprenticeship can be a lot more relevant in terms of the skills you're learning and applying every day than a more theoretical computer science degree, for example. So there's definitely broader benefits to apprenticeships, but diversity is definitely one of them. At WhiteHat, we have a social mission. So we're creating a diverse group of future leaders by building an outstanding alternative to university. And our candidate pool is incredibly diverse. Just over 50% of the apprentices we've hired since January 2019 have been from ethnic minority backgrounds. Just over 50% have been female. And 37% have had at least one contextual flag. And what that means, our contextual flags are proxies for socioeconomic background. And that's because one of our values is that we believe in social mobility. The kind of economic reality of your family doesn't need to determine the economic reality of your future. And that's something we believe in really passionately. So how do we actually source those candidates? How have we achieved that amount of diversity within our candidate pool? So firstly, we have a fantastic marketing team, and we use a variety of job boards, as Felix mentioned, which enables us to have really kind of solid reach. We also use Google's search language and have kind of really fun sessions working out what would a young person actually be Googling after their GCSE options, rather than necessarily what you would be Googling to decide what they want to do. We have really exciting video, editorial and social content. You might have noticed our recent Apprentice Nation concert, which is a partnership with Rock Corps, where we had Crepton Conan, Miss Banks, Tiny Temper, Ray, all performing for young people and trying to get them excited about apprenticeships. So we're really creative when we think about how we're going to get the word out, and in a way that's going to really be relatable and kind of spark the interest in our young people. Again, mentioned by Felix, we work really closely with our clients to ensure that our job descriptions are inclusive. If a candidate can't make head nor tail of your job description, then they won't apply. And so we kind of do lots of back and forth over the language to ensure that it really is accessible to all candidates. And then in all of our marketing materials and case studies, even the PR that we do, we ensure that the people taking part are really representative of our diverse community, so that candidates have role models that they can look up to at WhiteHat. And then one of the teams that I lead as kind of the inclusion and diversity lead is the outreach team. The outreach team is really about proactively going into the community and reaching candidates where they are at the services that they use and trust. So we have a school and colleges liaison programme that's led by mostly apprentice volunteers who are enrolled on programmes, which is really exciting because they are the relatable role models to the candidates, and they go back into their communities, deliver workshops, parents' information evenings, all kinds of things, whatever the schools and colleges need that we partner with. And for that programme, we reached 14,000 young people, parents and teachers in 2019 alone. And that programme has gone from strength to strength, even though we've had COVID-19 and there's been mass school closures. We've done different virtual events, a virtual open day, all sorts of things to ensure that young people in schools are still getting an opportunity to think about apprenticeships as a viable alternative for their future. We have something called mission-aligned partnerships, and that's where we really challenge ourselves to work with the young people who might be furthest away from getting onto an apprenticeship right now because they are facing the greatest barriers to education and employment. So that involves us working with the Job Centre Plus, and it involves us working with our charity partner Drive Forward, who support young people leaving the care system to enter employment. We then do lots of tech-focused outreach because tech is an area where it can be particularly difficult to reach some underrepresented groups. And we do our Tech Expo series, which is a localised event in each region of London that we run with a client. We did a girls' FinTech Insight programme with Curve and with Tandem Bank last February, which was absolutely fantastic, and that was all aimed at young women in year 13 to consider a career in fintech. And we have our more kind of intensive tech talent accelerator, which I'll give you a little bit more detail on as well. I won't kind of labour the point about the schools and colleges outreach, but if you do have the capacity to do it, or you want to do it through a partner like WhiteHat, it is fantastic because it really is developing that long-term talent pipeline. Young people start making careers decisions from as young as kind of like year 9, year 10. They decide what they would maybe do at university and can become very cemented in that view. And actually, loads of the jobs that they're going to apply for don't even exist yet. So it's really important to be kind of engaging with young people at an age where they're kind of broadening their horizons and thinking outside the box of what they could do. Our Tech Talent Accelerator is, as I mentioned, our most intensive youth offer for developing our candidate pipeline. That's a 6-week full-time boot camp that we deliver with our charity partner, Generation UK. It's free to every participant through fundraising that we've done. And they learn hard skills. So they learn 6 weeks worth of full-time coding, and they all get a employability mentor to also work on work readiness, growth mindset, things that are going to mean that they can kind of hit the ground running when they start at their company and work with their team. They even do things like agile working, sprints, so that they really know what it's going to be like if they're in a tech team. It's for 18 to 24-year-olds who are not in education, training, or employment, which is known by the acronym NEET, if you've not heard it before. And they have to, there's different criteria that we look for. One is living in a neighbourhood with high levels of deprivation. The government do a system where they kind of give every postcode in England a number, and number 1 and 2 are the kind of most deprived neighbourhoods. So we would look at young people who are living in the 20% most deprived neighbourhoods. Young people who have experienced time in local authority care, young people who've had refugee status, or young people who have dependents or caring responsibilities of their own. And finally, this is so important because young people who are eligible for free school meals in year 11 are 50% more likely to be NEET for the long term than their similarly qualified peers. So it's got absolutely nothing to do with natural intelligence, with how clever they are at all. It really is, parental income is still a huge predictor of what people achieve in this country. And that's why this kind of work is so important, because if you want the best talent, you need to kind of do something to try and overcome those barriers. Because this research shows that their similarly qualified peers are just in such a better position than them based on parental income. When you look at groups like care leavers, that's even more exaggerated. So once we've kind of identified this incredible talent, we've got them to apply to us, we then think more about our processes and how it's not, you don't just want an incredibly diverse talent pool, you want them to be able to be successful through your processes, so that they can actually end up working at your company. So we have a matrix for assessing potential that's very different, and we work closely with our clients to really challenge that status quo of the things that they ask for. A bit like Felix was saying, do you really need these things on the JD? We ask our clients, do you really need a 2-1 at university to do this role? Do you really need AAB at A level? Is a history A at A level really going to make a difference to whether this person is great with customers, or is it going to be their people skills? So we have those conversations, and we recruit young people based on a metrics where we look at grit, interpersonal skills, conscientiousness, problem solving, and intent. Intent is really about how much they really want it, and that's a great one. And then the process, we have a dedicated platform that we've designed and is bespoke and is kind of built with the needs of young people in mind. They'll create a profile on that platform. They then get a competency-based phone interview. They attend a kick-off experience with us, and then we put shortlists forward to our clients. So if you wanted an apprentice for a digital marketing role or for a software engineering role, you would get a shortlist of between 4 and 6 young people, and it's up to you who you interview. They then start their apprenticeship. And kind of the final thing I want to leave you with is really thinking about contextualization. And so you hear a lot about the importance of blind recruiting. Well, at WhiteHat, we much more lean towards contextualization as a policy, and contextual recruitment has also been kind of advocated by the Social Mobility Commission for the government as the best way to kind of bring a diversity of socioeconomic background into your organisation. So in our platform, we have inbuilt academic outperformer status, and that's not just based on the grades that you have, it's based on the school in which you took those grades. So if you achieved A stars in a school where everybody achieves A stars, you wouldn't necessarily show on our platform as an academic outperformer. Whereas if you achieved Bs in a school where that put you in the top 30% of the entire school, then you would show as an academic outperformer. We also have a flagging system. So you will get a flag for being a refugee or having had refugee status, leaving care, being a young carer, having been eligible for free school meals, or for that postcode deprivation that I talked about earlier. So this really allows our clients to look at a profile and understand the achievements in the context in which they were achieved. And once you have that context, you can really understand why that young person's achievements are so special, because you can really understand the barriers that they've had to overcome. And that is someone that is going to be completely hardworking, resilient, and determined in your organisation, because they've already had to overcome so much in order to get there in the first place. So we feel that context is what you really need to level the playing field. That's a lot of talking from me, so I'll probably pause it there, but happy to take any questions.
Wow, that was really interesting, Siobhan. So thanks so much. I had just one question before we bring in Javad here, but I just wanted to ask, you're doing such great stuff at WhiteHat, the Tech Talent Accelerator, school outreach, the tailored technology that you've got, the contextual, this contextual sort of academic over achievers. I think obviously that's amazing for you guys, and you've got the volume to make that make sense for you guys. But I think a lot of people maybe on this webinar might be recruiting at lower volumes, or even though they're looking to tap into the same talent pools as you are. Are there any sort of steps, if you were going to do the, I don't know, the minimal amount of effort to get the maximum amount of return, what are the things that you go to first?
So WhiteHat can work with any company that has as few as 10 employees. So if you do want to initiate your own apprenticeship program, WhiteHat can facilitate that, and then you have access to everything that we offer. We also have developed self-serve, so you can use our tech as self-serve to recruit apprentices too, and that is kind of less intensive than a lot of the kind of offer we have, but it does allow companies, as you say, that are much smaller, much more at the beginning of their journey of thinking about apprentices, to utilize some of that leveling the playing field technology. If you want to go it alone and you want to do one thing, then I would say start small. Find a local college or a local school that you can really start building that long-term partnership, and really thinking about what you could offer that kind of small group of young people, maybe every year in that school, so that you're building that relationship. And also that's great for things like responsible business too, because you're contributing to your community in an active way, as well as building your talent pipeline. If you are wanting to start somewhere, just start small and make it better every year for that group of young people, rather than kind of trying to spread yourself really thin, or just do a one-off event that's for hundreds of young people that you'll never engage with ever again. Kind of small, targeted and sustained is what makes an impact to the lives of young people, rather than kind of just doing a one-off webinar or things like that. So kind of think about how you're going to build it into your long-term strategy.
Yeah, that small, targeted and sustained is fantastic advice. That's great. Thank you very much. So now I'm going to introduce Javad, who is the VP of Talent at Habito. And prior to joining Habito, he was head of talent at Funding Circle, and then prior to that, not on the high street. So thanks so much for joining us today. Really looking forward to hearing how you guys go about attracting diverse candidates. I can imagine that sitting at the intersection of finance or property and technology, I can imagine it gets pretty challenging sometimes.
Yes, look, thanks, Felix. Thanks for the introduction. Just to give you a bit more detail in terms of my background, Felix is right. I am the VP of Talent at Habito, and I've been there for 3 years. And my role at Habito is very much to oversee everything when it comes to hiring amazing talent at Habito. I want to give you a bit of context around what Habito do, a bit of a plug, but also kind of like a bit of an overview of what Habito do. So Habito is the UK's leading digital mortgage company. So since 2016, we've been on a mission to make mortgages easier for everyone who wants to own a home in the UK. So we have 3 main parts of our business. One, we have a digital mortgage brokerage, which helps customers find the right mortgage for them, and is advised by the mortgage experts we have within the business. We also became a lender, so we have our own mortgages and we have a lending arm as well. We also launched something which is called Habito Plus, which is a home buying service, which allows customers not only to get their mortgages through us, but also provide conveyancing and surveying. If they've got conveyancing and surveying needs, we're able to help them in that as well. So that's enough for the plug. Attracting diverse talent. Apologies, I've got slides, but I think I didn't want necessarily to do death by slides, so I decided not to necessarily share the slides, but I will talk you through everything I have. So I think the first thing is very much when it comes to attracting diverse talent, I think the strategy that we very much looked at, or the strategy we've very much built at Habito, is to really understand, or to start off with, why are we building this D&I strategy? What are the objectives? Is there a problem we're trying to solve? Is it that we are looking to solve the gender or ethnicity issue when it comes to certain areas within the business? Or is it that we're looking to hire more people to have more diverse thinking within the business? I think what's very important when it comes to launching a D&I hiring strategy is making sure that you've got internal support, getting your stakeholders involved, getting the internal support from across the business. So not just your senior management support, but also people on the ground within the organization. Review what you have in place. So there's no point kind of like reinventing the wheel. So if there are things that you're already doing, just look at the things that you could really impact your hiring when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And the final point is make sure that you have got the time, the people, and you're going to need some money. Because one thing I've come to realize is nothing is free. You need to spend money to really get good value out of it. The next bit, I think, very much for me is when it comes to hiring diverse talent, you really do have to start with building a diverse and inclusive culture, because you need to attract diverse. You need to, if you're looking to attract diverse candidates, they need to be able to see that you're a diverse and inclusive employer. So some of the things that we've done at Habito are we've designed our values based upon the culture we're looking to build. They're intrinsically linked, so and we hire against our values at Habito. And I'm happy to go through that the values that we have at Habito. So we have empathize first, build better things, be 100% responsible, and have backbone. One of the things in terms of the diverse inclusive culture we try to build at Habito is transparency, because I think transparency is important for all organizations. Knowing what's going on within the business to feel like you're included in decision making. We work very much around OKRs, and OKRs we set on a business level and then on an individual team level, so everyone can input into those OKRs. We've done such things as we've built a culture handbook, which really talks or shows people kind of like from the outside in what Habito is really about. We have values months, we've got Slack channels, we do listen and learns. We've had external speakers come in. We've had Ruth Hunt from Stonewall. We've had Reggie Nolan. We do daily doses. We, in our all hands, we very much have different topics every week. We've also looked at, obviously, with the current COVID-19 situation, we've also looked at how we work, because I think we've had to rethink some of the rituals that we do. We have the Herbies, which is kind of like a quarterly celebration of employees. And the leadership at Habito is always accessible. And the other things that we do on a regular basis is engagement surveys to really understand how people are feeling. Sorry, if I'm going too fast, please do let me know. So what are we doing? What's Habito doing to attract diverse talent? I've just talked about kind of like building an employer brand that showcases your diversity. So some of the other things that we're doing is we have a video which really shows how diverse Habito is in terms of the current employees within Habito, which we're currently looking to redo again because I think it's slightly a bit outdated. We're doing a review of our careers page. We have a culture handbook. We have blogs and testimonials. We've also recently added our diversity and inclusion statement in all our job descriptions. And we've put together a talent charter. And a talent charter really is a promise we make to our candidates and our hiring managers from a talent team perspective around what to expect from us from our hiring perspective. And that can be anything from kind of like what we're doing from a diversity and inclusion perspective. We've also looked at the gender pay gap. So what are the things we're doing and how do we attract candidates? So we recently signed a contract with the Black Young Professional Network, where we are advertising our jobs from across the business. But we've also recently started advertising with She Can Code, which is another women-only coding job board or a engineering job board specifically targeted towards female engineers, because we realize that one of the areas that we are lacking is very much female software engineers. We've also reviewed our job ads. We're quite lucky that we do have an internal comms team, and we have somebody internally who's reviewing our job ads to make sure that they're inclusive. We've still got obviously work to do around this, but we continue to improve, because I think the one thing that you realize about diversity and inclusion is not something that you're going to fix in a quarter or 2 quarters or even maybe 12 months. It's an ongoing thing. It's a continuous thing that you need to keep going. So we're looking at our job ads. We're also doing content pieces and blogs with She Can Code and BYP as well. We're also looking at, and I'll come on to kind of the tools in a bit, but we've also been talking to an organization called Be Applied. And they're kind of like a new ATS, but I'll come on to that in a minute. We are headhunting. We are using agencies, or we're using agencies. We're also looking at referrals internally, because good people refer good people, and diverse people refer diverse people. And we're also looking at internal hiring. We've also had a look and done a review of our complete hiring process. We've looked at the tools that we provide our hiring managers to hire. And so if I kind of start from the beginning in terms of what we've done. So we're currently reviewing our ATS. We currently use Lever, but we're reviewing our ATS because I want to have a ATS that really helps us from the start of the hiring process when it comes to hiring diverse talent. And I've been over the last few weeks talking to Be Applied, and I've had a demo from them, and their product is great. It's very much focused around allowing candidates to, rather than having a standard application process, but really working on work samples to really understand the type of candidate they are. So we're not necessarily seeing CVs, but they're doing the work samples, which allow us to assess candidates on the basis of the work samples they provide rather than the CV they're providing. We've also looked at our talent process, and that's our hiring process, and whether our hiring process is inclusive. What else have we done? So we've also looked at making sure that our interview panels are diverse. We also do culture add values fit interviews at the end of the interview process, and we're training our hiring managers on those and people from across the business to take part in being culture add values fit champions. I've already talked about kind of the language in job descriptions. We've put together hiring plans or recruitment plans and hiring strategies, and we're rolling out recruitment training to our hiring managers to try and remove any bias around hiring. And looking at tools on how we assess candidates. So we're looking, again, I've talked about Be Applied, but we're looking at Be Applied, but also looking at the tasks we set and the scenarios and the tests we provide for our candidates, and making sure that they are inclusive and they don't necessarily have any, and they're inclusive in terms of the content they have, but also the language they use. And I think the final thing for me is around diversity reporting. So one of the things that we have done is that as part of the application process in our ATS, we have put together an anonymous candidate server, which is kind of built into Lever, which is the ATS we currently use, which really tells us the type of candidates that we're attracting and how diverse they are. And this really helps us understand whether we're doing or what we're doing is working. And that's it from me. Any questions?
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. I think we're going to come on to the Q&A section at the end. I thought one of the points that I really liked from yours, obviously you're doing so much to attract diverse talent, but the groundwork that you're doing there with the team on the OKRs, lunches and learns, the speakers, the videos, that sounds so powerful for getting buy-in. How difficult was that to actually get off the ground in the organization? How much work did it take?
I think that the buy-in wasn't that difficult, and I think the goal for everyone at Habito is to, and I talked about this before, you need to get buy-in from everyone across the business. The buy-in has been pretty easy because the goal has been, we want to work the type of culture. And so let me answer that question in the right way. So what we're trying to do at Habito is we're trying to build a diverse culture. So to get buy-in has been very easy because the goal has been the same for everyone. So the buy-in has been pretty easy. It does cost money, obviously, and you do need to make sure that you're speaking to the right people to make sure that that budget is there for you to do that. So that's one of the other things, obviously, to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And a great question in from Simon Ware, who has said, lots of talk from, I think, all three of us on the candidate pool that we wish to diversify. But the question is here, do we actually look outside of London? And I think Simon makes a really great point that in a world where there's full remote work now available, what about your UK reach for diversity? So Liverpool, Glasgow, Aberdeen, Swansea, and of course all of the other all around the UK. Do we reach out to those populations and rural areas, or just London and local to you? I might have first stab at this, Simon, which is to say, because it's something that we get into with our clients quite a lot. There's so much, as you rightly point out, there's so much opportunity out there to tap into new talent pools. And it's one of the silver linings that we see coming out of so much disruption to the world of work. So a lot of companies are starting to come to terms with that. A lot of companies, as you know, have cut down on their London-based offices. Some never returning to a world of the same level of in office working as they had before. So the next logical step is exactly that, to open up talent pools. And actually, we've been encouraging companies to think even bigger. Yes, of course, you can hire from Aberdeen to Southampton, but you can also hire in all over Europe, and also look at hiring SDRs in Cape Town or Johannesburg or wherever you're looking. The next couple of years, I think, will be people really coming to terms with how big their talent pools can be, and some of the opportunities, but of course some of the challenges that come to that. I'd be really interested in hearing what you guys think, either Siobhan or Javad.
Go on, Siobhan.
I was just going to agree. I think it's a huge amount of opportunity. I think for some, I don't think all clients are 100% sure what their long-term kind of office plan is. So I think when we have a more consistent view of what the future looks like, it might be, it's probably just speculation at the minute. So whilst, as you say, lots of people are getting rid of their London offices, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have a recruitment policy of absolutely anywhere. So we'll see if that kind of full transition happens or not. From a WhiteHat perspective, we're really excited to be expanding across the UK this year. We've recruited in Bristol just a few weeks ago, and we have the capability to recruit absolutely anywhere. But it's we're expanding to New York as well this month. So there's no boundaries to us opening up opportunities to everybody. I suppose it's just clients being really sure if they're completely moving to that. As a result, we're working from home all the time. So it really doesn't matter where you live, or whether in 6 months they will have some sort of office space. I don't think anyone's 100% clear on that yet. So yeah, but it would be really exciting if there was a world where you could literally live and work anywhere. I personally think it would be fantastic for social mobility in this country, because some of the most largest cold spots for social mobility, so where like it's most lacking, really is your like rural and coastal towns. And one of those biggest barriers is geography. Like physically, can the individuals get to the job opportunity, or do they have to move, which isn't great for those areas either, if all of the professionals have to move away in order to have jobs. So yeah, I'd love to see it happen. Not 100% sure if it's completely happening yet.
I think from my perspective, I agree with what Siobhan said. I think we've been working remotely as an organisation, as Habito. We've been working remotely since the first lockdown, which I think was I've forgotten even when it was, basically March. I think it was March time. So we've been working remotely. I guess being a tech startup, scale up, we were kind of primed to work remotely anyway. Everyone seems to be working on laptops. We had the infrastructure. So actually moving from working in the office to working remotely happened pretty much overnight. It was really, really simple. We are as a company working through what our long-term plan is around working remotely. I think it's pretty easy to do. What we've seen, we haven't seen a drop in output when it comes to working remotely, which is I guess is a positive thing, and a thing that most organizations fear. It's about whether output drops. I personally seem to be working longer hours working remotely. It's just kind of ended up happening. There's no real differentiator. Before, I obviously travel to the office and travel back, but that time that I was traveling to work and traveling back is now taken up from, oh, I've got more work to do, so I need to, it's easier just to wake up and just crack on to do what you need to do. In terms of hiring talent, we are open to hiring talent across the country. But one of the things that we have done recently is we've hired an engineer in Europe. And I think for a lot of organizations, I think the challenge can sometimes be, one, obviously the infrastructure. The two sometimes can be the time zone. Because if you're too far and you're doing stand-ups in the morning, or the expectation is that you need to be there. We do have core working hours at Habito, so as long as you're there within the core working hours, which is great. But yeah, we are going through the process at the moment to really understand kind of like a remote first, community first type of approach long term.
Definitely, I'd echo that from a WhiteHat as a startup perspective. We're very much moving towards the remote first. And when I did some analysis of where everybody lives recently, and considering we're at the moment, we were traditionally London based. We had a big office in Marylebone, and that's where we were. So you would have thought everybody would live in London. But I think we've been, our trajectory of growth is huge. When I started at WhiteHat, there was 40 of us. That was only a year and a half ago. There's now 170 of us, and there's projected to be kind of 450 of us very soon. And we've been kind of really full steam ahead with our internal recruitment throughout lockdown. And from looking at the data, actually now only about 77% of our organisation are London residents. So that's a really quick change. And I know members of my team that live in Cornwall, that live in Leeds, and it, again, definitely no impact on productivity. It's a really exciting time, actually. I think that is one of the few benefits of the last few months that we're going through.
Absolutely. And a question's coming from a Louise Wiseman, and I'm going to ask this to Siobhan, although Louise asked it to all of us. I'm sure we can all chime in. But I think particularly interesting from an apprenticeship side of things, which is, the question is culture fit a barrier to hiring a diverse workforce? And if so, what tips do you have to smash through this barrier? I thought it would be particularly interesting, Siobhan, given that often with apprentices, people feel that culture fit's all they have to go on.
Culture fit is a huge barrier. I think language is so important. And if you really think about the words you use, actually sometimes it really changes the environment and the actions that you then do. And just by talking about culture fit, you're signaling that fitting in is important to your company. And that you have some view in your mind of the perfect mold of your company that you want everybody to be. And really any culture, any background, any kind of personality type, as long as they are values aligned with your company, should be able to work at your company and absolutely thrive. If there's a specific culture or background or personality type that you think wouldn't fit in, then I think, to me, that says do some internal kind of reflection on how you can be more inclusive, because you'll never have that diversity of thought if there's one very specific type of person that you've kind of got in the back of your mind when you're recruiting. So very much recruit on, and this is what we do with our apprentices, we recruit on that skills matrix, and we really ask our clients, and we ask ourselves in our own recruiting, that values alignment is what you're looking for rather than fit. And we really steer away from using words like, how is somebody going to fit into the team? Would they fit into this dynamic? And actually challenge, how does your team need to change to make sure that anybody would fit in as long as they are good at their job?
We've had some pretty furious nodding going on from you during Siobhan's answer. And I take it you agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is, being in recruitment for so long, the one thing I realized was, and I totally agree with what Siobhan said, culture fit is probably the wrong language to use. So culture fit is where you have a few people who define the boundaries when it comes to who is allowed to fit. And every employee must kind of fit within these boundaries. What we do is we have a culture ad. We have a values-based culture ad interview, and what that is employees are selected based upon what they can add to the organization from a number of their experiences, and kind of like connecting those multiple pieces to allow them to be kind of like be part of Habito. And I'll explain to you what I mean. Doing a culture ad interview assesses whether a candidate possesses Habito's values, attitudes, and behaviors. Our values and attributes make up an exceptional culture at Habito, and should be and is reflected in our richly diverse workforce. The goal of a culture ad interview is to assess candidates' personal work styles and preferences to ensure that they are a great addition to the business. So we focus around culture ad and what they bring to the business, and making sure that they're aligned to our values, rather than, okay, these are you need to fit within these boundaries. Because what that does is it reduces diversity and inclusion at Habito.
That's really very interesting. Thanks so much for participating, both Javad and Siobhan. Really great presentations. Loved the lively Q&A at the end, but we are unfortunately at the end of our time together. I just wanted to say to everyone, thanks so much for joining. To our brilliant panelists, we hope to have you both back, and to everyone that took an hour out of your day to find out about such an important topic. Thanks for doing that. We've got 3 upcoming webinars. We've got one for those who are really super keen today, this afternoon. I didn't put the time, but it's at 4 p.m. We're actually doing a webinar with Applied, who are the technology platform that Javad mentioned before, around what the right talent function is for a company at different stages of their evolution. Then we'll pop that link in the chat as well. Then at 10 a.m. on the 21st of October, we're doing building a high-performing internal talent team, quite similar, but a bit more detailed and a bit more of a deep dive from us. On the 22nd of October, we're doing an introduction to diversity-centric recruitment with the Federation of Small Businesses. So we'll also send a link to that I think we'll have to send that in the email around afterwards. Further resources, as I said before, we've got a diversity hub that you can use for free on our website. It really is there just to share our methodology on diversity-centric recruitment. Please use it and let us know what you think. And I hope that everyone has enjoyed it today. I'm sorry that we didn't get a chance to get around to all of the questions, but yes, Natalia, there will be a recording available, and that will come around in the email afterwards. So everyone, have a great rest of your week, and thank you so much again for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.